In this video, we'll be diving into the world of virtual closings. Are you tired of the closing process feeling like a slow motion nightmare? Imagine mountains of paperwork, endless scheduling conflicts, and the frustration of geographically displaced clients. There is a solution that can streamline your closings, save you time and money, and leave your clients wanting to do it all again. This helps get you paid a lot quicker. The solution is called virtual closing. Let's dive in. Welcome to day 26. We're continuing in the theme of streamlining transactions and operations within real estate industry. So today we are covering virtual closing platforms, and the subtitle for us is simplifying the closing process. So let's start by defining what closing is. Closing is essentially the point at which the transaction, the deal, your purchase closes in quotes. So how does it close? It means that the file that's related to the purchase transaction is closed. So that's when you sign the paperwork, the vendor signs, and then the purchase signs, the agent is there also with the relevant legal parties, and everybody agrees that the purchase has been completed. So the title has then transferred from the seller to the buyer. Deal closed. So that's closing. Now, virtual closing essentially means that you can do this remotely without physically being there with all of the parties at the same time. So virtual closing is also called remote closing. Some parties call it e-closing. And what this is about, as I've mentioned already, is that everything is done remotely without physically meeting one another. So this was quite popular during the pandemic, or when people could not meet physically, or when there was social distancing. And things that usually had to happen physically, like identifying your ID, so who are you personally, matching your face to the picture on your passport, validating your address and any other legal documents. Prior to virtual systems coming online, these things had to be done physically. Now that's no longer the case. So utilizing technology means that all of these things can be done remotely. So with the remote closing, all parties can complete all or some of the tasks from the convenience of their home. And we'll talk a bit more about some of the reasons why not everything can be done remotely in some circumstances. So the traditional way of completing would have entailed you print all the documents, so you print all the mortgage paperwork to be signed, and with X's on certain pages to identify where you have to sign. Then you print out the particulars of the property, the title deeds, and any other liens that might exist on the property, and make sure that all of those things are understood in front of your solicitor. So many years ago, to purchase a property, you may have to have traveled to your solicitor, sit in front of him, read a document. He'll sit there and witness that you've read all of the documents, and then witness your signature. And that would have entailed printing multiple copies. And then the buyer's solicitor would request certain copies from the seller's solicitor, and then seller's solicitor will send different copies to the buyers. So there's a lot of printed documentation. Things have to go via post. So imagine the time it takes, or it used to take. And then you'd have to coordinate everybody's timetables to make sure that everything happens within the allotted time window, and within the time that the legal system would approve. And then you've got location limitations. So if somebody's up north in your country and they're buying from down south or from different coasts, it meant that one of the parties would have to travel from one end of the country to the other. Usually the buyer would have to do the traveling. So all of those things required expense, physically being there, and a lot of coordination. So what's the new way of doing things? Well, there's no real reason why you have to physically be in any place now to complete or sign documentation other than legal reasons. So the first thing is take advantage of online video calls, so Google Meet, Zoom, and the like. There are now tools that can validate your identity. You don't have to physically be there. There are platforms that would take certain aspects of your passport, and based on that can validate that against a picture of your face. So that is in place, and that uses AI as well, because when you take your picture of your face from those apps, it validates that your face is correct, and it checks your eyes, checks your ears, makes sure everything is within the oval that it presents, and then matches that to your passport. That's all AI, and that streamlines the step of validation. Then online document signing, that's fairly common now for a lot of solutions. And document signing just entails that the contract that you'd normally sign in the presence of the solicitor can then be uploaded to one of these portals like DocuSign, and the places where you're supposed to sign are earmarked. And when you receive your copy, it tells you where you must sign. So you read through the pages, and then where it marks sign here, you just have to do a signature on the screen of your device, and that often is sufficient. So using this option enhances all of the closings and makes things happen a lot more efficiently and conveniently and a lot faster. So what are types of virtual closing? One is hybrid closing. So hybrid is essentially a combination of physical signing and e-signing. So in some states in America, for instance, they don't allow the signing of the mortgage paperwork to be done remotely. You have to physically be in an office in the presence of a solicitor or a notary to witness your signature. So in that case, everything that can be signed virtually, you can do that online. And then the things that cannot be done virtually, you'd have to arrange to meet up with a notary to have that signed. And in some cases, you can have a remote online notary personnel. What that means is that somebody will sit behind a Zoom call or Google Meet and witness you sign the document. So in some states that's sufficient, and that is a job, remote notarizer. So, and there is some pre-qualification for that to happen. And then the third type is an in-person e-notarization, sometimes referred to as IPEN. With this method, a wet signature is required. So wet signature is where you physically use ink to sign a document, as opposed to signing on a screen or a device. Sometimes that's what the legal requirement is in a state. So let's talk about some of the benefits. We have three parts to the benefits of virtual closing. So some of it is obvious, others are more examples of where virtual closing would come in really handy for an investor. So the first thing is the efficiency and speed. So you can close deals with e-signatures. That's great. There's the flexibility, which means that you can sign or close your deals in between calls or in between meetings if you're remote. Another set of benefits is the improved satisfaction of the client. Clearly, if somebody wants to buy, it's a big decision for any purchaser to purchase a property. If they can do it in some cases remotely and not face the intimidation of having to be in front of a solicitor and the like, then this could be something that works for them. They're better satisfied, they're happy. The other thing is the reduction in cost. So all of the paperwork that would need to be printed normally for a wet signature, you don't have to do, because all of that would be on screen, and whatever is signed can be shared amongst all of the parties quite easily and very quickly. And then the travel costs, then the travel convenience, then it's greener to do everything remotely. So these are some of the benefits. So the final one are more examples. So we're drilling down into the points we've already talked about. So if you're out of state and you're purchasing in a state, so if you're in Massachusetts and you're purchasing something in California, how many times would you have to travel to California for this one transaction before it closes? Who knows? You may travel to do the viewings, and then after you've done the viewings, travel to first time to meet the seller solicitor to sign some paperwork, then travel to meet the agent and all of that. That's multiple traveling. But with virtual closing, if everything can be done remotely, then that saves you the cost of traveling, the time cost and the physical monetary cost. Then if you're working 9 to 5, you don't have to take a day off in order to complete your transaction. You could just do that over the phone via Google or Google Meet or Zoom, and then the transaction is closed. Then what if you're buying or purchasing multiple properties in the same week or on the same day? You can't physically be in all of those places at the same time. And if something is time pressured and you have to fly to multiple countries or multiple states and multiple countries, then it would not be possible without the virtual closing option being available to you. And the final one is you're executing the process at your own time and pace. So you're not restricted to the time that's been specified by another party. You can perhaps read the documents in the evening after work, and you can sign it at your own convenience at any time. So let's study some of the virtual closing platforms. So the different aspects that are components of virtual closing are, firstly, there's the document sharing and an e-signature. So you have things like DocuSign. That's a platform. It's very secure, as far as I know, and there are many options as well for signing virtually. So the remote online notarization that's run. So these are licensed online notaries who can verify your identity and witness your signature. So I mentioned earlier that this is a job role. Yeah, exactly. So you need to to become a RON, you need to go through some training, need to pass some exams potentially in some states, but that frees you to become a notarizer, and anyone purchasing or completing in particular states would have to wait for a remote online notarizer to witness their signature and validate or verify their identity. And then real-time communication and collaboration, so everything can be done on video. Through video conferencing. If there are any last minute questions or any last minute concerns, those can be raised at the same time, and the completion or the closing can happen swiftly. And then another benefit that one can include would be tying the closing to your CRM system. So rather than wait for all of the documents coming through the post for you to then upload it to your system to say, okay, this is now closed, this is complete, and putting in all of the relevant parameters for the closing, this can be done remotely and swiftly and in an automated fashion. So this helps with your workflows and introduces automation to your business. As with anything, there would always be some cons or some considerations that cannot just be swept under the carpet. So one is the security concerns. How do you know that the person who's purchasing the property is the real person that should be purchasing that property? So there are security controls that have been put in place to help with this. And one of the major concerns tends to be that the person buying isn't the real person, the ID isn't correct or accurate, that maybe the person who's buying doesn't really have the financial standing to make that purchase. So these things are considered and factored into the entire process. So the concerns I just mentioned are some of the reasons why certain states are slower to adopt the virtual closing solution, but eventually every state will have to do it, because any state that's not doing it would be left behind. Whether they care or not doesn't really matter, but that's the state of things currently. So there's platform security as well. Are things really secure? Things encrypted? And then very standard security protocols like multi-factor authentication. All of these things are part of the current solutions and have been tested and verified over the years. Then the final one is compliance and regulations. So there's the e-Sign Act, which was enacted to allow e-signatures to have the same legal standing as wet signatures. So that's all in place. So what tools exist for virtual closing? So we take the different components of a closing transaction. There's the signature aspect. So what would handle your signature and what is the legal standing for it? So you have the e-sign act, and then you have platforms like DocuSign that can handle the signature aspect. Also with digital notary, there are some websites that provide this as a service. So I've provided two options here, aiinrealestate and federaltitle.com. There are others as well. Just put it in Google and you'd see other options come up. And then for the video calling, you have the likes of Zoom and Google Meet, fairly standard tools now that people use and are comfortable with. And then with documents sharing and storage, the same document, the e-signature app also provides the document sharing and storage tool, and they put all of the information in a place where you can refer to them many years hence after the completion. You can imagine that people who've purchased properties and have had those properties for 15, 20 years, referring back to all the documents that were part of the purchase can be very difficult. But with this solution, the document will be there forever, effectively. So in conclusion, there are many benefits to virtual closing, some of which we've talked about. So the efficiency, flexibility, client satisfaction, cost reductions, and how it fits into your daily timetables. And then don't just listen to this and not adopt the virtual closing, even though I fail to see any agent that doesn't have virtual closing within their business or within their workflow. I'll be surprised if it's not been adopted. The speed to conclusion or to closing cannot be understated. This is part of getting to the end of the deal and getting to the money being in your account. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you for joining us. All that remains to say is we are Autoree.ai. We bring automation to your businesses. We bring chatbots, custom GPTs, and custom knowledge bases. Custom knowledge bases are essentially where you can query your documents and get answers specifically from your documents and not from the wider internet, depending on how you set things up. So our aim is to bring more AI knowledge into the real estate industry and get people more aware and comfortable with the new way of doing things. So you can reach out to us on our website, Autoree.ai, or any of our socials, and feel free to take advantage of the AI audit. So join our waitlist for this and we'll get to you in no time.
Get you
Thank
a
you for
chatbot.
listening. Keep investing.